slave to the clock on the wall. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask Patrick or Chris to call the roll.
Commissioner Alexander, Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner DeBrava,
Here.
Commissioner Ellis,
Here?
Commissioner Hayes,
Here.
Commissioner Hyder,
Here.
Commissioner Mann.
Thank you. First order of business is to look at the proposed agenda and approve it if it's approvable. And if it's not approvable, let's make enough changes to make it approvable. Does anyone have any changes they want to propose? If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on June 12th, 2023. Does anyone wish to make changes to those or additions, subtractions from those minutes? If not, someone give me a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
A second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the June 12th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hayes,
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava,
I abstain.
Commissioner Ellis.
Aye. Okay. Tonight we have two public hearings. I'm going to ask Patrick, I guess, to read the rules that we go by on our public hearings. I will say to you, and then I will repeat, that we will call each of these hearings separately and take information. Go ahead, Patrick. Read away. Thank you.
The Planning and Zoning Commission holds public hearings as required by law and provides recommendations to City Council on matters relating to land use planning, zoning, and the subdivision of land. Any person who has an interest in the subject matter of a hearing will have the opportunity to provide testimony and present evidence to the Commission during the public hearing. Speakers are required to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful manner. Disruptive behavior, including applause, conduct themselves or yelling, speaking out of turn, or other inappropriate behaviors will not be tolerated. Additionally, the following applies to any person addressing the commission. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless authorized additional time by the chairperson. Speakers must speak at the podium unless previous arrangements have been made by the chairperson. Speakers must legibly print their name and address on the sign-in sheet. Speakers must begin by stating their name and address, and speakers should speak clearly into the microphone. The chairperson will announce the subject of the hearing, followed by a report from staff. The chairperson will then open the public hearing to the applicant, followed by those in favor of the application and those opposed to the application. The chairperson will close the public hearing. During this time, the commission will discuss amongst themselves. The public may not address the commission after the close of the public hearing unless requested by the chairperson. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall base their recommendation and/or decision on the information and evidence presented during the public hearing. This decision, if required by the application, will be forwarded in writing to City Council for further consideration.
Thank you. The first public hearing is rezone number 23-003, a public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 4 acres located at 1192 South State Highway MM from agricultural AG to heavy industrial M2. Chris, have you got the staff report?
Yes.
Susan Biney has applied to change the zoning classification of approximately 4 acres of property located at 1192 South State Highway MM from agricultural AG to heavy industrial M2. The property subject to this rezoning application consists of approximately 4 acres of land located at 1192 South State Highway MM, which is currently the site of an unoccupied residence. The following paragraphs contain brief analysis of present site conditions as well as a proposal's relationship to adopted plans of the city. The city's comprehensive plan generally encourages the expansion of residential and commercial development through proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are described generally throughout the plan with regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure capable of supporting various intensities and densities of uses. The goal in the comprehensive plan that this rezone meets is to coordinate infrastructure development through the encouragement of redevelopment and integration of the former Brookline area, with the objective of supporting the development of an industrial commercial center where the infrastructure and transportation exist. The rezoning of this parcel is consistent with the city's adopted plans. The subject property fronts State Highway MM, which operates as an industrial corridor within the city. The general trend of this area has been a transition from agricultural zone properties and residential uses to manufacturing and commercial uses in conjunction with planned infrastructure improvements. The subject property is adjacent to an agricultural AG zoned parcel bordering both the north and east property lines. To the south is a second agricultural AG zoned parcel. Across State Highway MM is the Republic Industrial Subdivision, a preliminary platted heavy industrial M2 zoned subdivision consisting of 5 parcels. The heavy industrial M2 zoning district is intended to support manufacturing and industrial related uses. City water and sewer systems have capacity to serve this property if the application is approved. Actual development of the property will require connecting to municipal water and sewer mains not currently located near the property. The provision of sewer service to the property will require the construction of a lift station to serve the basin in which the subject property resides. The precise path effluent would take to the wastewater treatment facility is dependent on the siting of utilities and structures, but is likely to flow from the site to the Brookline North Lift Station, to Brookline South Lift Station, to McElhaney Lift Station, and then to the wastewater treatment facility. The water system, named lift stations, and wastewater treatment facility currently have capacity to serve the intended use. The city waived the requirement for a traffic impact study in relation to this rezone application based on the presence of existing access from the site to State Highway MM, a primary arterial class road set for anticipated expansion to 5 lanes in fall of '24. The subject parcel does not contain any areas of special flood hazard area. The subject property does contain an identified sinkhole, which is shown on the map up there. That sinkhole has actually been reduced. Since then, we've got a sinkhole study that changes the sizing of the sinkhole. Staff considers the proposed zoning map amendment to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, consistent with the trend of development in the vicinity of the site, compatible with surrounding land uses, and able to be adequately served by municipal facilities. Based on this analysis performed without the benefit of evidence and testimony of a public hearing, staff is recommending approval of this application.
Thank you. The first order of persons who are given the opportunity to speak will be the applicant or the representative of the applicant. Is the applicant present or a representative, and does that person wish to speak? Not having any luck?
I don't believe the applicant was able to be with us tonight.
Okay, thank you. Not having any luck with that, I'll go to any other persons who are would approve of this application. Okay, I'll go now to those persons who are opposed to the application. Is there anyone that is opposed to this application that wishes to speak? Boy, drawn to a dead hand, aren't I? Okay, given that, I'm going to close this hearing and we'll discuss this. And then, as I said before, we will call the second hearing immediately after we get done discussing this. Got a ton of information, folks. What are we going to do? No one has questions, I'd take a motion.
Do we know what it's gonna be or what they're proposing to do with this site? Is the sinkhole on here? Oh, sorry. Do we know what it's gonna be, what they're proposing this to be, especially with the sinkhole on the property?
At the time of a rezone, we don't require an actual proposal or money to be spent to design that work. The rezone is designed just to allow the uses which within that zoning category. We don't have an application for anything on this one.
Okay.
I believe their intention is to rezone in order, to make a sale of the property.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve rezoning 23-003.
Yeah, it's approve the application for a change in zoning classification of approximately 4 acres located at 1192 South State Highway MM from agricultural to heavy industrial, M2. I have that motion. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Want to call the roll?
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder.
Aye.
Thank you. Move to our second hearing, rezone number 23-004. Public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 1.1 acres located at 2313 and is that through 2330 or is it just 2313 and 2330?
Through.
Okay. Let's see. 2313 through 2330 East Timber Oak Street from 12 Stones Planned Development District, 12 Stones Planned Development District, PDD, to a two-family residential R2. Staff?
Thank you. Wilson's Creek Villas LLC has applied to change the zoning classification of approximately 1.1 acres of property consisting of lots 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Wilson's Creek Villas subdivision from 12 Stones Planned Development District PDD zoning to two-family residential R2. The property subject to this rezoning application consists of approximately 1.1 acres of land within the Wilson's Creek Villas subdivision. All subject properties are currently vacant. The precise location of the subject properties are as follows: 2314 East Timber Oak Street, 2318 East Timber Oak Street, 2326 East Timber Oak Street, and 2330 East Timber Oak Street. The following paragraphs contain brief analysis of present site conditions as well as the proposal's relationship to adopted plans of the city. The city's comprehensive plan generally encourages the expansion of residential and commercial development through proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are described generally throughout the plan with regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure capable of supporting various intensities and densities of uses. This rezone meets the goal of recognizing potential infill sites as opportunities for development while mitigating impacts to adjacent established properties, while meeting the objective of supporting the development of vacant parcels as opportunities for densification, harmonious with surrounding development. The rezoning of this parcel is consistent with city's adopted plans. The general trend in the vicinity of subject property consists of residential uses of varying intensities. The subject property is adjacent to high-density single-family residential R1H lots to the east, Greene County zoned suburban residence R1 lots to the south, and two-family R2 lots in the Oak Court Place Plan Development District to the west. I'm sorry, those aren't R2 zone, those are PDD with the use of that being R2, or two-family lots. Greene County's suburban residence R1 zoning district is intended to provide for detached, single-family residential development in areas with access to public utility services. The two-family residential R2 zoning district is intended to permit duplex-style dwellings. The development of the property will require connecting to existing municipal water and sewer mains located near the property. Both an 8-inch water main and an 8-inch gravity sewer main are located on or in adjacent right-of-way of the subject parcels. The sanitary sewer will flow from the site to the McElhaney and Schuler Creek lift stations before it is pumped to the wastewater treatment facility. The water system, named lift station, and wastewater treatment facility currently have capacity to serve the intended use. The properties will have driveway access along East Timber Oak Street. A traffic impact study was not required for the rezoning application. The subject parcel does not contain any areas of special flood hazard area, floodplain, and the subject property does not contain any identified sinkholes. Staff considers the proposed zoning map amendment rezoning to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, consistent with the trend of development in the area, in the vicinity of the site, compatible with surrounding land uses, and able to be adequately served by municipal facilities. Based upon this analysis performed without the benefit of evidence and testimony of a public hearing, staff recommends the approval of this application.
Thank you, Chris. First persons up are the applicant or the applicant's representative. Are they here? Do you wish to speak? Okay. You understand this is a hearing now? Okay, good. Is there anyone here that is in favor of the application who wishes to speak? Is there anyone here who is opposed to the application who wishes to speak? Yes, sir? Yes. Come forward and speak from the dais and give us your name.
My name's Jerry Williams. My wife Margie and I live at 7637 West Wade, which is directly south of 2314 and 2318 proposed sites. We've been there for 37 years. There's a couple of things that I'm concerned about with this application. First of all is privacy. There is a row of brush between our house and the proposed sites, but most of that brush is on their property, on the 2814 and 2318 proposed sites. And there is also, when they built the duplexes at the site directly to the west, which was 2306, when those were built, a couple of things happened. One of them is that they brought in fill to raise the level of the ground to get the building up so that it would drain properly, which was, that's common practice. And the other thing they did is they built a privacy fence at the back side of that lot. And I was hoping to make sure that they extended that privacy fence. I don't know. I haven't talked to the developer. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Hopefully it will. But we'll see. And the other thing I'd hope to talk to them about is what do they plan to do with the brush on that lot? I prefer that they keep it for privacy reasons, and plus I like the trees and the brush back there, but it's their property, of course. They have the right to do what they want, but I would hope that I would get involved with that process. My other main concern with this plan is stormwater runoff. Our particular house on Wade sits at the peak of a hill. We're pretty much the highest elevation from all the east and west properties. The property directly behind us, though, is just slightly higher. Most of this land is fairly flat, but it does taper off a little bit towards our house. 11 years ago, we had to replace part of our sill plate, part of our foundation, part of the rim joist, and part of our floor joist from water damage that was coming off of that stormwater runoff towards our house. So that problem's been taken care of. It wasn't cheap, but it was done. But what I'm concerned about is this property is at the top of the hill, so to speak. If you go east or west, it starts to drop off. And we have retention ponds on either side that are a few hundred feet away, which is good and bad. It's good because it does take care of the runoff, but I don't know if the developer plans to do anything else to stop water running off directly towards the south, towards our house. That's a big concern of mine. And the other problem is that the retention ponds on either side where this water would supposedly go in a heavy rain event, neither one of them are working properly. The ones on the west side, Mike Polk lives down at the end of the street, and every time he has a heavy rain event, he's got a lot of water in his yard because the water is going around the retention pond. It's not working properly. One of the retention ponds over there, just off of Timber Oak, there's a bunch of rocks right there by where the overflow is. So is that supposed to be there, or are they trying to block it? We don't really know what's going on there. The other retention pond was put in last year to the east, and it was put behind the Hands house, and the Hands house is on 7547 West Wade. And right behind their house, they installed the retention pond a year and a half ago when they developed the other properties north. And the water's going around the outflow. It's not working properly at all. So the house to the east of us is Greg's house, 7621 West Wade. The previous owner had water in his basement. 7547, the Hands house, they have a sinkhole that developed in their front yard last year. We've never had sinkholes out there, ever. And they just put the retention pond in a year and a half ago. Is it related? I don't know, but it makes me suspicious. And also, 4851 Westfield, which is across the street from the Hands house, that's where the Weisenats live. They're here tonight. And every time we have a heavy rain event, their front yard turns into a river. So it's obvious to us that those retention ponds on either side aren't working properly. So if this moves forward, I'd like to see the developer get with whoever they need to get with, or us or whoever, to get those retention ponds addressed and find out what we can do to get the water to keep from creating additional problems down the road. Because it's relatively flat land. It's kind of deceiving, but when we have a heavy rain event, it's a lot of water. And Mike and Don both on either end by the retention ponds, I would always kid them saying they can get the kayaks out because it's pretty bad. So that's what I wanted to bring up tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that's opposed to this application that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Ken Bitzer. I live at 7627 West Wade, and I'm just got a little corner of where that development's going to onto the east. And I'd just like to ditto what Jerry just said, because when they built the other houses on Timber Oak, up there, those duplexes, they built them way up high, it's about 6 or 7 feet up above where the land used to be. And when they developed that, the developer said, and the city said that they were going to put a concrete duct lining down through that way to run into that culvert down there. They never did that. Never happened. So when the water does run, it runs down behind mine. I was getting a lot of water. And then, of course, now it goes to my neighbor, and it goes down around his house, which is 2 houses down. And when they originally going to develop that property that they're doing now, the previous developer said that they were going to run the water all from the back of that line all the way to that new retention pond. The water would run that way. But like Jerry just said, the way the land lays out there, we don't know which way it's going. So that's something that needs to be looked at, because the water will come our way. And the property where the gated community is, to the west of that property, along the property line, Ozark Electric has a right-of-way through that so they can get to the power that runs from 174 over to our subdivision. I'm not on Ozark, but all the rest of the subdivision is, except for 4 of us. And so that property needs to be, they need to have access to that. And I talked to the builder when they were starting. He said, I didn't even know about that there was, Ozark had access through there. So maybe somebody needs to bring it up to them. So those are some issues. And if they leave that gully along that side on the west, a lot of water is going to run there with all those houses they built across this way. So that water is going to run along that west side, unless they build it up. I don't think they've done that. So that's another issue. There's a lot of water comes off that land. That's basically all I had to say. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's opposed to the application that wishes to speak?
Hi, my name's Don Wisnat. I live at 4851 South Westfield, and I'm on the south side of the development that they're building there, which is to my west, northwest. And our problem is, we think there's going to be excessive runoff, water. We're already inundated with water coming down from the other new development they're making there on the east side of this. And we can't absorb any more water than what we're already getting. And we're afraid that once they build this new deal, there's going to be more water come into the pond that they've got built there in the weir where the water comes out. It's not set up right. It has no retention. It doesn't stop any of the water at all. It just runs through there just like it's nothing. And when it does that, it comes across their property, goes down, comes across ours, and comes across our property, our yards and stuff. And I think if there was something done up there and to the east of that to take care of some of this water problem, it would be a better deal for everybody involved, because that's the big problem. It's going to be the big problem. It is the big problem right now, and it's only going to get worse if something's not done in a proper manner. So that'd be left up to the city and the county. We're in the county, actually. On the other side of the fence is the city. So I think it's going to have to be a compromise between both of them to get this weir problem fixed, where the extra water's coming into it, and where the water is. It's in that retention pond right now, to try to get it stopped, because it's going to be a big problem for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wisnett. Anyone else who is opposed to the application who wishes to speak? Okay. I'll close that hearing and we'll talk about it here. I have some questions. Would you please explain when you have water runoff on a new development, what the rule of thumb is for the city?
So we'll answer your question in a second. I'm going to speak kind of to the more general situation with this that's going on with this detention. There's in the history of it, and then I'll let Garrett speak to the technicalities of the situation for grading. But my intention is to address the items that were brought up, if that's okay.
Sure, that's fine.
So the first thing that was brought up was a question of buffering requirements. The city does require a type A buffer between uses of R2 and R1. And while it doesn't specifically call out the county's R1 zoning, we wouldn't necessarily have to do this. It is our intention to require the buffering that we would require on any of the lots where a single family is against a duplex. And a type A screen, just to go over that, is a screen opaque from the ground to a height of at least 6 feet with intermittent visual obstructions to a height of at least 12 feet. So those barriers can be made of, a variety of things. It's usually vegetation and fences that often make up those barriers. So I don't know what we'll see that is. It could be that vegetation is left in place, but some type of buffering will be required between the R1 and R2 uses. So that's to address the first gentleman's concern with buffering on there between his properties. So we are aware of some detention issues coming from the new detention. I had not received anything on a detention site to the west. I wasn't aware of any complaints of those. We've been working with the county and with both property developers to determine the best way of dealing with this particular detention. And both of these one is a very new subdivision that's just being finished out none of the houses are even finished out. They're working to finish some of the houses now. The other one has not started construction on any houses and is working on infrastructure at this point. Our intention is to, correct some of these if there are deficiencies in the detention, to correct those. This is a particularly tricky one, as some of the people said, because it is between the county and the city. So we have the ability to require things in our easements that we have. Some of the natural solutions to this would be on the county side, of which, we don't have an easement there and the county doesn't have an easement to do anything there. So without the permission of an individual allowing us to do that there, some of these solutions don't work. We're looking to figure out what the best solution is. And we'll continue to work, with the engineers on this project to get this, because we have had a number of complaints. But our requirement is that the detention be built to the engineer's specification to function as Garrett will describe they function, and that's what was done in this particular case.
Thank you. Chris covered most of the gist of it. The detention pond, so this property as well as the subdivision directly to the east are sharing a joint detention between the two of them. So all of the water runoff from this site is intended to go to that detention basin. And as Chris said, we're working on addressing the issues with that detention basin as we speak. This was vetted through both ourselves and the county. Both sets of our engineers and the county's engineers looked at this. Greene County did go and talk to several of the residents in Greenfield Estates while going through construction planning for this project to try to find the best solution they could. What was ultimately determined, what was looked at was doing stormwater improvements through the subdivision, which would have required additional easements and additional piping and stuff through Greenfield Estates. At that time, the property owners did not want that. So the solution was at the end of the detention basin to do what is known as a level spreader, which is essentially a bunch of rock, riprap, that will spread the water back out to more of a sheet flow rather than a concentrated flow that will then continue down the natural pathway as it has for many years. Detention basins are not designed to stop water. They are designed to reduce the flow rate of water to what it is today. The difference is concentrated versus sheet flow. And you will have more water over time going through the natural drainage channel. The idea is to get it down to what goes through there today. So how I describe that a lot of times is it will be wetter longer, but ultimately it will not get any worse than it is today. And as they work through the issues with the other subdivision and that detention basin, I fully expect that to be corrected. And we will continue to work with the county on making sure everybody in Rankin Acres is taken care of.
Okay.
I'd offer one correction to what Garrett said. He had spoke of the piping through Greenfield Acres. That piping was through the Rankin Acres. So what he was talking about was a design, looking at designing a way of conveying that stormwater through there, through stormwater piping that went through some of these, possibly some of the residents in this room's homes. And that was ultimately rejected between, with discussion with the homeowners.
Okay.
I might make one further note, and that is currently we are discussing the rezoning of 4 individual parcels. The should the rezoning pass, it will not result in additional lots of any sort. So these duplexes potentially will be built on those individual lots that are currently existing today.
The difference would be that there's 4 more roofs that are shedding water when it rains.
Not actually 4 more roofs. It will be 4 residential structures that will serve as duplex instead of single-family homes.
I think what Karen was implying is that there's no reason those houses couldn't be as large as a duplex structure if they're single family. It doesn't change the size of the structure.
I wasn't making a reference to the size, just the fact that there was going to be more hard roofs that would shed water. But the rule of thumb, as I understand it, on these any structure with respect to water runoff is that the amount of water that runs off as a result of the new construction, the new zoning, whatever it is not to exceed the amount that's running off at the present time.
That's correct.
Okay. Does anyone else on the commission have questions?
So these are currently part of the 12 Stones PDD, and is that the location that extends up northward from this location, or is
Yes.
where are the extents of the PDD currently?
So this is 4 lots that would have been single family, and the rest of that subdivision is directly to the north there.
Okay, so were R2 not originally platted, or just not originally included in the PDD?
It was originally a PDD, and a different developer came in and ended up developing it. So the person who originally did the zoning is not the person who built
Okay.
the properties, and they would like to do, something different with those bottom 4 lots.
Okay.
Any other questions? No. Sorry. Any other questions? I'm sure the people here that you want to ask it to would listen to your question. As soon as we get done, just go tackle him. And, yeah. Any other questions? Did I hear a motion?
Motion to recommend the approval of the application rezoning 23004.
Thank you. Your second?
I second that motion.
Okay. Call the roll.
Commissioner Hyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes.
Aye.
Okay. Is there any other business?
We don't have any department updates now.
You're ahead of the,
Oh,
I haven't called that yet.
There's no other business now.
Okay. Well, then I'll take a motion to adjourn if there's no, you have no other business and no builds update.
If you don't mind, let's make sure there isn't any citizen that wishes to participate on any.
Oh, did I miss that? I did. I'm sorry. My bad. Is there anyone here that wishes to come forward and talk to us about any issue other than what we've already been discussing? Hearing none, and there's no builds update, I take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis.